Let's call the January 27th, 2021 CPC meeting to order. Thank you. Welcome to everybody. We're going to try and bang through this for you. We have a brief agenda with a lot of probably meat on each item, but we'll try to get through them in an orderly way and get people on with their evenings. So agenda item number one, we have a review of the January 13th, 2021 meeting minutes. Meg forwarded those earlier today. Has everybody had a chance to take a peek at those? Any comments or questions?
I'm going to have to trust the rest of you. I'm afraid I'm running a little late on this stuff.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, questions, motions they want to make on that?
Mr. Chairman, if Mimi, do you want another few minutes or to review the minutes, the meeting?
Well, I would just as soon either trust you guys or put it off till next time because I am frantically catching up. This is like my third meeting today. And
Amy did give me one note earlier around a sentence that was just an incomplete sentence. So I do see that I do need to change that underneath the HHA agenda item. So I have that piece on my radar.
Mr. Chairman, would you want to wait till next meeting for this approval?
We want to make a motion, we'll table it, we'll table it.
We'll table it till, if no one has any objections, we'll table the minutes of the January 13th meeting till our next meeting, next scheduled meeting.
We have a second.
second.
All right, all in favor of tabling the meeting minutes until our next meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Great.
you. I do appreciate the chance to actually read them.
So welcome to our guests, agenda. Well, actually, let's do Andrew McMahon. We'll take him out of order as a other on the agenda. We're unexpectedly, Andrew's able to join us. I think it's important to get just a quick review of the CPC finances so we know what we have available for funding for pending project applications. So if everybody's okay with that, I just soon ask Andrew to give us a quick update. You sent an email that had a PowerPoint summary of the CPC finances and available funds. So Andrew, you want to just give us a quick walkthrough of that? And
Sure. So what I focused on was the changes since the last time we met. Let's see here. Can you guys see that?
Not yet. Oh, it's coming.
Coming up.
yes. Yeah.
All right. So really, this is the meat and potatoes of it. I'm sorry for the just the 2 slides here, but I just wanted to get something out there for the record for the group. The top number is the number that I briefed last meeting of total available, and I didn't go into the buckets and the years. And then I took out the administrative budget, leaving us with a fiscal year 21 balance. Since we last met, we did have 123 Pine Street returned to the pot. So that's the 150,000 there. And there was 120,000 in housing and 30,000, I believe, in historic. I'll have to double check that for sure though. But either way, they were both covered by the 10% threshold of that year. So this all went back into the actual general fund. I saw you guys were very busy. Exciting to see the 4 awards there. And I hope I captured all of them there with the Wayfinder, Scotts Tower, Harper's Haven, and the Wisteria Hearst, leaving you with a balance of 689,000. So if that looks right, I will note this in my Excel sheet that I will share with the group, an updated running budget for all of us. And the way I think I'll do this is I could do the updates frequent, like almost every meeting you guys have to have the snapshot, and I could do the more in-depth deep dives into the financial as requested and when warranted. And then another thing, since we last met, I did work with the, the city auditor. They were trying to do some end of fiscal year reports. So I had a few Zoom meetings with Tanya, and I think it's good. I'm going to go down there as soon as we can, and we'll get a better relationship. I think she took over for Bellaby. So everybody has a copy of this. I
Yep.
could always answer more questions if you guys have them. But I wanted to get that out to you. And I have been, yeah, it's been hectic. I'm running the vaccine operation for my VA hospital and I'm doing my guard thing on the side. So I hope this is sufficient right now.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you. And just, Mike, just for clarification purposes, we have $689,000 in funds available for recommendations for awards of applicants, correct?
That's correct. And you guys have gotten the open space and the housing, I believe, the 10%. So it's pretty wide open.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Andrew? No?
Good to see you guys.
Thank you so much again for your help.
Thanks, Andrew.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
All right, great. So, so we have move on to our agenda item number 2, back in order here, and we have 4 applicants here. I think there's someone from each group, and what we would ask in an order, and I guess, Amy, is the order correct? Fire truck, JFK, War Memorial, Pulaski. Is that the right order that you've scheduled these?
I have the fire truck, Pulaski, War Memorial, and JFK, although I know that Mike McManus and Mark Joyce are flexible.
Okay, so can we just, so we'll do fire truck, we both have the number 1. What are we gonna do second?
Pulaski Park,
Pulaski Park second.
War Memorial, and then JFK Memorial.
Okay, great. Does that work for all of the applicants? Does anybody need to get out of here sooner than that schedule? All right, good. Let's go with that. So, let's start with the fire truck. And what I would do is just ask you to introduce yourself or selves. Spend, 2 to 5 minutes giving us a quick summary, and the public a quick summary of it. We have your applications. I think all the committee members have them in front of them or accessible. So, we've read them. We generally understand what it is, but the public may be listening in, and it's important, that they understand what your application is also. So, so fire truck, you're up.
Hi, my name is Tom Schmidt, Deputy Fire Chief at the Holyoke Fire Department. I have Chief Prescott-Palsy with me also. So any questions that you need to ask between the two of us, we can answer them. And I'll let the chief start off, if you will, please.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us in tonight. Tonight, we're going to present to you our application to restore a 1935 Mack fire truck, which has been with the department since 1935. It's never left the department. It's been with us for the duration, which is spectacular in itself, because many times these older apparatus get bought off or sold off over time, and then they're.
Uh-oh.
If we're losing you,
We can't hear you, Jeff.
Try again. We heard 1935 truck, and it's been with the department, but then you kind of cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry
you're
about that.
back.
How far did you get?
No, it's there.
Sometimes this old equipment gets sold off and.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so this 1935 Mack fire truck has been with the city of Holyoke since 1935. It's never left the city. It's never been, it was never sold later in its life to another community. It's been here. It's been in numerous St. Patrick's Day parades and numerous community events. It's delivered Santa Claus to the tree lighting ceremonies at City Hall. And it's a piece of the Holyoke Fire Department history that we want to preserve, and we want the city of Holyoke to have it for another 100 years. It shows the advancement in fire department technologies. dating back to 1935. And it shows how far we've come when you put this up against a fire truck that, we purchased a couple years ago. It's an amazing feat. I want to thank all of you for your service for the Community Preservation Act. Without this mechanism, we would never be able to do this project. So I want to say thank you to you guys for all you do. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Shea, who is the technical expert in this field. He's put a lot of time and effort into this application. And if you have any technical questions, you can certainly throw them at Tommy, and I'll stick around and answer any questions that I can for you also. And again, thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you, Chief. When I started this process, I wanted to find a specific company that had specialty in restoring historic fire trucks. And I found that company in Elizabethville, Pennsylvania. It's Schwab Wagon Wheel. They've been in business for 125 years, and they've been restoring fire trucks for 50 years. And they restore between 70 and 80 fire trucks as of now. In a slideshow, I'll show you, it's not our fire truck, but I will show you the caliber of work that these people do. The restoration is going to include off-the-frame restoration, where basically they're taking this entire fire truck apart, sandblasting it, and whatever needs to be fixed, they're going to fix. And keep in mind that the fire truck is 86 years old, and some things may have to be replaced. And when they have to be replaced, they will be making material or using material from that time frame to make it look original. So the restoration include off the frame, undercarriage being painted, the frame being painted, the body being painted, the gold leaf lettering back on the fire truck, the pinstriping, the nickel plating on there. They're going to polish it possibly. If they can't polish it to its original luster, they're going to replate it in nickel. If they polish it, we can save a lot of money that way. When a fire truck is done, it will be historically accurate. Also, I mentioned in my application that we're going to go from a 6-volt system to a 12-volt system. I want to explain that a little bit. Years ago, it was a 6-volt system, and they're not very reliable. So today, we're going to do a 12-volt system, which is much more reliable. And in the future, it's so much easier to get parts for the vehicle if something happens to it. So if you look at the vehicle, there's a generator on it now. It's going to be switched to an alternator. Most likely to take the guts out of the generator and actually physically put an alternator into it. So aesthetically, it looks like a 1935 vehicle. The wiring will all be from 1935. You won't see anything modern day in this fire truck. When this vehicle's done, it will be original 1935. I just want to look at my notes for 1 second. And also for financing, I spoke to the gentleman down there today, and if financing is a problem with the money we're looking for, he can work 2 fiscal years for us if he wants. What I mean by that is, so say if you grant the checks in June, we can hold on to the check in June, send a truck down in November. They can start working on a truck in November. Next June rolls around, we get the second half of the grant, then they can finish the truck. So we're only asking for half a grant this year, half a grant next year. And he also said if that's what the path we want to take, he will keep his prices the same. Otherwise, normally his prices go up 10 to 12% per year. So he'll hold his prices on that. I think it's a huge opportunity for the city to restore its history and keep it for another 100 years. Right now, I'd like to show you guys some pictures so you can see exactly what we're talking about. One second. Just hit the arrow. Okay. I'm sorry. This is from one of the parades that we had. And this is original when we received the fire truck. They're actually putting parts, nozzles, extinguishers onto the fire truck, making it their own. As you can see in the middle of the fire truck, there's a big reel there. There's supposed to be a hose there. The hose isn't on it yet. So that's original. And Schwab Wagon Wheel has these pictures to keep everything authentic to the way it was. And when I started this project also, he sent a vendor up to Station 5 to take several pictures of this so he can have the pictures on hand as to when he starts doing it so he can keep it authentic. This is another picture of the fire truck. These guys working on it, and it shows the lettering, all the stuff that's on the truck. This is it right now up at station number 5. As you can see in some of the spots, there's some closer pictures I'll show you. Where you'll see rust paint chipping off in front of the wheel well, paint chipping behind the wheel well. That's the front of the fire truck. You can see the fender on the left-hand side, it's sagging down. That was bent a little bit, but the fender on the right-hand side, that was damaged much more. You can see paint right above that hook where paint is actually chipped off the fire truck and rust is starting to form. This is the cab of the truck. You can see a couple of spots that are missing. A couple of gadgets are on there. I'm not sure what they are. I'm sure SWAT wagon wheel will know what those are. Okay, this is the hood of the fire truck on the driver's side. As you can see, it's right down to bare metal and rust is starting to form. And there's no way to stop rust unless you sandblast it and paint it. This is the passenger side. You can see the rust on the right-hand side. I'm sorry, the paint is off on the right-hand side and you just see light rust starting to form. That's a closer shot. If you want me to slow down or pick up, you want to go back, please speak up. And this is the driver's side, right front fender. You see a lot of paint is off and that housing holding the headlight. And this is the passenger side, the back of the fire truck. And this is the rear of the fire truck. You can see those two little handles. There's a door there. There's a compartment underneath there. There's a couple of rust holes in that compartment, and that will be fixed or replaced to that time era. And if you see the railings on both sides that bend up that bend out, those will all be polished or nickel plated again to make it look original. And this is the driver's side where the hose, you see the hose there, and just the paint is off the fire truck. And that's the driver's side as well. Paint is missing. And this is at the pump panel. So it's time for a little TLC for this vehicle to keep it for the next 100 years.
So I realize this isn't the point at all, but just out of curiosity, once this is restored, how functional is it as a fire truck?
This is going to be restored to historical purposes only. Right now, that pump, it has leather gaskets in there. And if we were to try to make that an actual working pump, the gentleman from Schwab, he says, you wouldn't be able to afford it.
Gotcha.
So this is strictly for historical significance.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because it's the same era as old metal Singer sewing machines, and they are, awesome. They still run perfectly if they've been kept in order. So I was just curious. I realize not relevant to this application, really.
Safe to say they don't build things like they used to, and this is a really strong fire truck. And this is the ladder rack in the rear.
Just so you know, there's some equipment on this truck that is original to the truck. If you look at the wooden ladder that's on the top, that's the original wooden ladder that came with the truck back in 1935. So we've done our best to try to keep the equipment that was on that truck also, which you don't see all the time. So we tried to preserve the history as we went along also.
The ladder the chief is talking about is right behind the two gentlemen that are standing side by side. That's the ladder. And you see two gentlemen bent over right behind the passenger seat. There's a large nozzle there. We still have that in the back room. That will be put back on the fire truck. And the two nozzles to the far left and the rear, we have those nozzles as well. And on the other side of the fire truck, we still have, there's a strainer for the black hose that's there. That's for hard suction. We still have that. Okay, right there, right below the axe handle, there's a long nickel-plated strainer. That is still on the fire truck as well. So on that note, I think it's a huge opportunity, and it will be historically accurate when it's finished. So if you guys have any questions, we'd love to try to answer for you.
And that was mine. You already answered the other one I had, which was whether there was any.
Oh, look at that.
I'm sorry, I forgot the other gentleman here just showed it to me. This is the fire truck that Schwab just finished about 6 months ago. If you look at the detail that's on there,
Beautiful.
it doesn't look anything like a modern day fire truck. Everything is historically accurate to that year. And it takes about a year, depending on the parts, to get it looking that way. And every year you wait, it's that much harder to find parts for these vehicles.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
and I know, Chief, if you wanted to add something else.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and I know you guys see a lot of applications and you see a lot of restoration projects that end up being, I want to say static displays, static restorations where the history is preserved in place. And when you're in the building, you see the fruits of your labor. This restoration is going to be a rolling restoration. This restoration, in effect, we'll take this truck down the road. We'll be able to participate in civic events. We'll be able to deliver Santa, like I said, to City Hall for the tree lighting ceremonies. We'll be able to participate in the St. Patrick's Day parade with it and all the children that ride on the truck during that day. We plan on taking this truck when restored to schools and to incorporate it in our fire prevention programs, and to have the children and the teachers see this truck and to see where we came from as a department. We're a very proud department, nationally known, nationally recognized, proud department that obviously in us saving this truck for the amount of years that we have, obviously we have a tremendous amount of respect in the equipment that we had in the past. And this opportunity only presents itself every once in a while. And hopefully we can get this project done and restore this truck and bring a little civic pride back to the community.
All right, thank you. So do any committee members have any questions for the chief and deputy chief while they're here?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike Falsetti.
This is for Tom or Jeff. Does the $130,000, does that include the transport of the truck to Pennsylvania and back? Is that included at that $130,000?
Yes, it does. It includes, if you want the figures right now, I can give them to you.
No, I just want to, there's just a question. That's okay. When it's done, it's going to be stored at Building 5 or Station 5. Is that it's going to be its home, permanent home?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
Most likely, yes. But driving it down there, it's going to be on a flatbed. Coming home, it's going to be an enclosed carrier. So
Sure.
stones from the other cars aren't chipping those front fenders and chipping the paint.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just didn't want to know if it's included in the cost to transport back and forth. Are you going to do anything with the engine? Are you going to redo the engine itself, or is that okay as is?
We spoke, we had a gentleman named Dean DeCaro. He was here years and years ago. I spoke to him last week regarding his fire truck. He did quite a bit of work on it before he left the city. And he said at this point, he goes, that truck is running to where it needs to be. He goes, for the amount of time you guys use it, he goes, I wouldn't touch the motor. It is where it needs to be.
Okay.
And he's a fantastic mechanic.
Good. Good.
Any other questions from committee members? I'm not hearing anybody. I can't see.
So I'll just make a comment.
Can we stop the screen sharing? So yeah, thanks. Just so hard to see everybody. So, Rose, you were.
I'll make a quick comment. My uncle was the fire chief in Agawam, and my cousin and him, they restored many fire trucks, and they have the Agawam Fire Truck Museum, it draws so many people in, and people love old fire trucks. It's just a nostalgia thing. So I think it's a great project.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Anybody else on the committee have a comment or question?
Oh, just that it is really helpful to know that we can break this over 2 fiscal years.
Yes.
And like I said, he will keep the price, the original price, as opposed to going up to 10 to 12%, which I thought was fantastic on his part.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate your having done that legwork, because it would have been the obvious question if you hadn't. And this just makes it simpler and faster for us to evaluate.
And he probably knows money's tight everywhere, so he's trying to work with us as well.
Yeah.
So anybody else on the committee have a comment or question? I was just going to ask. Go ahead, Marco. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to thank you for going all the way back to the beginning, 1935. Sort of the authenticity is apparent, and I think much appreciated. Thank you.
Anybody else on the committee? Anybody in the public have any comments that they want to add in or questions that they want to ask? I'm not hearing any. All right, well, thank you. That was very informative. Thank you for all your hard work.
Your time, everybody. The chief and I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Thank you. So I don't know exactly what the schedule is going to be for consideration of recommending this for funding or not. Could happen anywhere between tonight and a couple weeks from now, but we'll make sure that you are informed as soon as any action takes place. Okay, and you're more than welcome to stay and sit, but if you leave, it doesn't count against you. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Number 2, we have Pulaski Park. So Mike McManus, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
All right, great. So again, if 2 to 5 minute presentation, the committee members I think have all read the application. The public may or may not have. So quick.
Sure. I do have a presentation.
Great.
Can
Good.
I
And then we'll follow up with a couple, 5 minutes of questions after your presentation.
Okay. Can you see the
Yes.
PowerPoint? All right. So Pulaski Park, it abuts the Connecticut River near the Holyoke Dam. This project is for there's a retaining wall that was constructed in 1910 in that area. It's so the park, the history of this park back in 1860 to 1880, it was a shanty town in Holyoke, and then in 1884 they raised the shanty town. They did a bunch of grading and planted some trees, and it became known as Prospect Park. And Prospect Park is on the National Register of Historic Places. Then in like 1910, the original Prospect Park had like it had this wooden. It really didn't have like a wall at all, if you can see it along that bluff. But then in 1910, they constructed what we see now with the concrete retaining wall and the overlooks. There's 4 overlooks that look out over the river. It was designed by a Holyoke City engineer at the time, who was James Ty. He was a city engineer for a long time. But it's over 100 years old. It's seen better days, and it could use some rehabilitation. But since it's on the National Register, if DPW were to go out and do it, we would probably just slap some mortar on it to try to repoint the walls, and it wouldn't be done properly. So the request was for kind of an engineering restoration study of the walls, for someone to come out and take a look at the walls and make recommendations for how the rehabilitation should be done, construction techniques, mortar mixes, preparation of the wall for the rehabilitation. And then with that, if it would be within DPW's capabilities, we would try to do that work in-house. The request for $40,000, it's for that study. It's not for any of the construction work associated. And there's another thing going on with the wall, is that there's sections where it's tilting, and these along here, it's kind of listing towards the river, On the back side of the wall, you're still at grade. So there's no real concern that this is going to have a catastrophic failure and fall down the embankment to the railroad below. But it is a problem. You can see that there's a crack in the sidewalk which runs along here, and what I think is happening is there's been some undermining underneath the sidewalk and in the wall, and that's causing it to lean in. So part of that initial study would be to look at this and see if there are some simple fixes on how to get the wall back to being plumb. And then once that's done, it would be great if we could restore the scenic views from this part of Pulaski Park. So you can see this was back in the 1890s. You really have clear views of the river. Before the wall, this was when the wall was built in the 1910. This was taken yesterday, this picture here. So you can see there's a lot of scrub vegetation that's growing in the embankment down to the rail lines. The rail lines are clear. This material was actually removed a few years ago, and it's just grown back. There's a bunch of, I'm not sure what kind of vegetation it is, what kind of trees they are, but it's scrubby. There's a lot of thorns and other junk in there. Clearing out that embankment isn't part of this this application. It would be something in the future to do, and also come up with a plan for continuous maintenance to make sure that it doesn't grow back. That's not what we're asking today, and probably not something we would ask in a few years.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mike Falsetti. To be clear, Mike, those on the right-hand side, those little houses that are projecting out, there's going to be 4 of those. Is that in the plan in the future?
Which?
The upper right, westerly from, yeah, right there. The little.
That?
Yeah.
So that was back in 1890. That's no longer there.
No, I understand that, but is the goal to restore a couple of those as in the long term? Is that part of the goal of this project?
No,
okay.
No, it would be to restore this wall itself back to its original condition. And like the concrete that was used, it has this exposed aggregate. There's a different topping concrete. It's like a pad on top of the main wall. You can see it like here, where it's a different type of concrete. And then there's just I didn't see any rebar or any steel that looks like it's spalling and causing this damage. I think it's age and weathering overall.
Will it be the whole wall or just that section?
The intent would be to come up with a plan for the whole wall.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. So questions from the committee members? Maybe any other questions or comments? So
Yeah, I don't mind saying a word if there's a moment.
I'm sorry?
Is now a good time for me to say something?
Go
I wasn't
ahead.
sure if you were speaking.
I will at another time. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so one piece that's cool about Pulaski Park, or Prospect Park, as it was called initially, is that it was initially designed by the Olmsted brothers, who were some of the most famous architects of their age. So if you've ever gone to Namkeeg, for example, up in the Berkshires, right, that's another landscape designed in part by the Olmsteds. So it's really interesting to think about bringing back this park, not only from the vantage point of just pure safety and how it looks, but also the historic aspect of it. So I think it really does cross two categories, right? Both the historic and also open space and recreation. And you were pointing out the material of the wall. The Olmsted brothers really never liked the material of the wall. That was one of their main complaints and how it was actually facilitated based on their design. They felt that the material of the wall wasn't quite right.
To further that point, based on some information that Olivia shared with me, the wall was built first before the Olmsted brothers came in, and they had done kind of a plan for the city for a bunch of different parks. Springdale Park was also an Olmsted, or is an Olmsted park. So they were kind of forced to make their design utilize this wall. They also wanted to put a fountain in the park, which never got built. So that could be a future project.
Anybody else? Meg, by the way, I was going to ask about Olmsted and the wall, just to clarify that that wasn't their, I wanted to clarification, that wasn't their design in the wall, but as I understand, Mike, it is because the park is on the National Registry of Historic Places. You have to stick with the design of the wall. And I'm not suggesting that I don't like it, that Olmsted didn't, but it's not an option.
Right. Olmsted, one of the things in Olivia's notes was they wanted to create a way for people to walk down the embankment to get to the river. I don't know if we want to do that because of the railroad, but also the proximity to the dam and the intake for the hydro.
Anybody else on the committee have any comments or questions on Mike's application? And again, I don't know if you mentioned it, you probably did. This is a $40,000 application for an engineering study.
Correct.
Mike, has this gone out to bid already in some form?
It has not.
Okay. Where did the $40,000 come from as a number?
Just a swag, if you will. I don't think it would cost 40,000. I think it'll be less than 40,000 based on some other historic preservation plans that we've done. But I don't want to be short either.
Okay.
And Mike, how quickly could you engage an engineer and have the results of this study? What would you expect?
I mean, if you guys were to say go ahead and do it, there's a number of structural preservationists who are on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts preservationist lists. I would reach out to them to see if they're interested in solicit proposals. Then we would review those and pick one that we liked and start working on it. So it could be, I think we could have a completed project between 4 and 6 months from when we're told there's funding.
Great. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Marco, you want to weigh in on this?
All set. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead. Amy.
So, Mike, the wall was designed before in Olmsted, but it's still the entire park that is considered historically significant regardless, right?
Right. And it's Prospect Park that's on the National Register of Historic Places. Prospect Park was renamed Pulaski Park in the 70s by the city. So the wall is part of Prospect Park, Pulaski Park.
Anybody else on the committee have any comments or questions? Anybody from the public want to weigh in on this application? Now's your time.
Hi, Linda Pratt here. I don't know if you can see my hand. I couldn't find the raise hand on Zoom. Yeah, I'm just really in support of this project. I live by Pulaski Park, and I wanted to go on record as appreciating what I believe was probably DPW did trim a lot of the overgrowth that was growing over the wall. And I think that the need for the repair is a lot more obvious now. So it's a beautiful park, you know, that a lot of people in Holyoke really have not spent much time in because it's kind of tucked away, but you have potentially great views of the river. We've got the whole recreation area down at one end of the park. And then the other end is really a place where people come and sit and read and visit and pass time. So it's a beautiful park. I'd love to see that wall get restored. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Linda. Anybody else have any comments on this application? All right.
Let me just ask a quick question to Mike, sorry.
That's what we're here for.
Okay, so I just want to know, have you reached out to the Connecticut River Watershed Conservancy? Because I know that they're really interested in saving the views, and maybe in the future you could work with them. So I just want to put that in your hat.
I have not, but that's a very good idea. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. That's it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
You know, again, you're welcome to hang out, but you don't lose points if you take off. So, all right, let's move on to number 3, which I have as the War Memorial Building. Chris, is that you?
Yes, sir, that is me. Also, I have a presentation to present.
Feel free to share it again, you know, 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll follow up with some questions.
Yes, sir, will do. Okay. Let me just pull this over real quick. Can everybody see the screen I'm attempting to share?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Sims. I'm from the War Memorial Commission in Holyoke, and this is our presentation on the limestone facade restoration project. So, project narrative. The building was completed in 1938 at a project cost of $221,605, which equivalent today is just shy of $4 million. The building is located at the corners of Maple and Appleton. The limestone facades are on both the Maple and Appleton Street sides, and they are showing severe signs of weather-related discoloration. The restoration of the limestone facade does meet the city's CPA guidelines of preventing real and property harm or destruction. So the project quote that we got from Presto Restoration came in at $55,000. We're requesting a total of $60,000 to account for any kind of variables. After the project is completed, we are not anticipating any additional costs. Once this project goes underway, we will coordinate with adjacent city departments, such as DPW, city engineer, and the like. The project timeline, we don't anticipate this going anything beyond 90 days. After discussing this with Presto, they estimated to be closer to a 30-day range. So, as I previously mentioned earlier, Presto, they have submitted the initial quote that we're running with. Mr. Tom Stowe is designated as a project manager and has operated as such for the last 6 years. Mr. Richard Dominguez is designated as the crew leader who will be responsible for the day-to-day operations and managing the crew. What they plan to do is simply low pressure water, soft bristle brushes with a chemical cleaning. The process is in line with U.S. Secretary of Interior standards. Initially, they're going to do a test run of a small area to come up with which combination of chemicals work the best. So the attachment here is the Historical Commission's determination of the building being of historical significance, which is a requirement for our CPA application. This picture right here is the Appleton side of the War Memorial Building, and as you can see, more so towards the roof line, the discoloration is almost abhorrent.
Chris, we lost you.
Okay,
We
am I
lost
going
your
too
sound.
fast?
Hearing.
I can hear him.
Yeah, me
Am
too.
I the only one that keep?
Maybe we lost you, Kip.
Yeah, we might have lost Kip.
Okay, I can back up to whatever point you lost me at, Kip.
So is it a limestone exterior?
Yeah.
Correct. On both the Maple and Appleton sides is a limestone facade, correct. This is the Maple Street side. Again, all of the discoloration is primarily directed at the roof line. All right. So the public benefit. So it is the commission's view that such a jewel of the monument, I'm sorry. So this is a jewel, which is a monument to the city and to the veterans community at large. And it really shouldn't be the eyesore that it really is right now, to be quite frank. Maintaining its appearance for us sets a precedent that the city cares about its historic landmarks and about the sacrifice that our American service members have made in service to our country. An assessment of the level of decay is definitely necessary to see just how bad it's chewing up the limestone. So for vendor experience, this is one of the more prominent case studies. They did the Turner Properties Incorporation building in Atlanta, Georgia. That's one of their bigger projects. This is the Old Scotia Bank building in San Juan, Puerto Rico. This project is similar to the one that we would be requesting. As you can see, it's experiencing some pretty bad discoloration at the roof line. That's a before and after photo. As far as CPA funding is concerned, it's not feasible for us to scale down the project. We don't want to do the Appleton side and not do the Maple Street side or vice versa. So we're hoping to get it done in one push. In conclusion, this project is fully supported by all 7 members of the War Memorial Commission. Through my research, we have found no records that a project of this type has been conducted since the building has been built. And that is my presentation. And again, I extend my warm regards to the CPA committee.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent job. Questions, comments from committee members first?
Chris Sims, will you give me your title, please, one more time for the minutes?
I'm sorry, ma'am, the total of the project.
Will you give me your title for the minutes?
My title, yes, ma'am. So I am the chairman of the War Memorial Commission.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Marco?
Hey, Chris, thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much. I just had a question. Being an architect, I saw that and I thought, could that be something coming off the coping that's on the parapet edge, you know, the thing that connects the roofing to the wall? Or is it just like soot that's washing from the parapet down the face of the building? Like, has the veterans organization, I'm not sure what the organization name that you're with, but have they like conducted a survey or like a needs assessment so that you make sure that you identify if there's any issue? Like, I wouldn't want there to be, I don't know, some kind of iron underlayment somewhere, you know, in the roof coping that, you know, when moisture gets to it, it lets off some kind of, you know, it would be good to know what the source of it is. If it's just environmental, like soot washing onto the parapet and going down, because that just, you just clean it, that's it. But if it could be some material that was on the parapet, you know, the coping, I wouldn't want there to be some old underlayment that's causing this problem. You go clean it up, and then after a couple of years, you start getting the problem again. So the source of the issue, I think, would be important to me, just to make sure that the repairs or the course of action is targeted at preventing that this would happen, you know, in 5 years or something. That's all.
Most definitely. So to comment on that, I have been in close conversation with DPW, and they did recommend that a simple professionally done cleaning would suffice. Now, as to the exact cause, it could be a combination of things. I mean, one, the building is 83 years old, so that's 83 years of just harsh New England weather beating on that building. It could be a growth, or it could be any kind of residue coming off of the roof itself. And that's the best I can actually give you right now. But again, DPW did assure me from their experience that, again, a professional cleaning would get the job done. Now, in regards to 5 years from now, what Presto does is after they clean the facade itself, they utilize their own personal sealant known as leach stop. And that will basically preserve the limestone itself. From 2 years later, you know, that same buildup is back on the building. So
kind
a
of
sealant will be utilized.
Okay, so it's a sealant that's going to go on the stone that the stone will soak up, and it'll be good for a period of time, and then okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, very good then. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. My privilege.
Anybody else, committee members, comments, questions? So let me just say quickly, in the early 70s, my father was the director of the Council on the Aging, and their offices were in that building. So as a youngster, I spent a ton of time running around in there, and you know, and when I drive by it now, it doesn't look like it did then. And so thank you for putting together a plan to clean that place up.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
All right. Anybody else? Public? Anybody in the public, comments or questions? No, I'm not hearing anybody. Amy, you have something you want to ask or clarify? No?
No, I was just trying to make sure that the member of the public here is unmuted. I sent a message to ask to unmute, but maybe there's no desire to say anything.
No. All right. Go ahead.
So I think it's great that the War Memorial is being addressed, and also Lady Liberty, all in the kind of the same area. It's a nice feel.
Yes, ma'am. We're lucky enough that all 7 of our commissioners definitely care about the building itself, and of course the monuments that we are placed in charge of. So it's really our privilege to be in a position to pursue these types of services that are definitely necessary.
Thank you, Chris. I think that's it, right? Everybody's good? Thank you, Chris, again. Thank you for your time. Again, you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Have
a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, the JFK Memorial Park. Mr. Joyce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody can hear me okay, I hope. My name's Mark Joyce. This is my daughter, Stephanie Joyce. I'm the current president of the St. Patrick's Committee of Holyoke, and Stephanie is the chair of our board of directors. Our terms have been extended a couple of times here because of the cancellations of the parade and the road race. So we're around a lot longer than we thought we were going to be, but most of the time that's a good thing, I guess. I don't know. At any rate, we are the applicant for the rehabilitation and restoration of the John F. Kennedy Memorial. We have a co-applicant, which is the Parks and Recreation Department, because the city of Holyoke owns the monument. It's under the previous speaker, Mr. Sims, their purview, and the Department of Public Works and the Parks and Rec are co-applying with us. Terry Shepard is aware of this, and she's submitted a letter of support in the package. I hope you have it tonight. Stephanie and I appeared before the Holyoke Historic Commission on December 14th, and they made a decision that designated the JFK Memorial as an historic resource that is significant in the history, archaeology, architecture, or culture of the city of Holyoke. So we're very pleased to have that. I think it was long overdue, and we're happy that they came to that conclusion. A very brief history, if I can. This monument was constructed, I think you all know where it is, at the corner of Appleton Street and Richard Welch Way, formerly the top of Suffolk Street. It was constructed in the mid-60s, 66, 67, in memory of our slain President John F. Kennedy. Members of the community, as well as the parade committee members at that time, felt that it was appropriate to try and put together some type of memorial to President Kennedy. And I won't read the whole thing, but our oldest serving member is Attorney Morris Ferreter. I won't tell you how old he is, but he was on the original parade committee in 1952. The committee, as I say, was formed to determine the appropriate memorial and to raise funds to finance the endeavor. They came to the conclusion that a fitting tribute would be a statue of the late president at an appropriate park in order to highlight his likeness. It was decided at the current location because obviously it was available, number one, but in the early years of the parade, going well into the 60s, that was the starting point for the parade. It would line up in front of the old A&P there at the corner of Pleasant and Appleton Street and go down to High and a number of other streets downtown. And that was the starting point when John F. Kennedy led the parade as the National Award winner in 1958. It was essential that we receive the approval and blessings of the Kennedy family. Morris Ferreter and I believe former House Speaker and Holyoke Community College President David Bartley were the co-chairs of that. And Morris went to Washington rather and met with Senator Kennedy to approach him to see if we could get the family's approval. You can imagine back in those days that there were, just tons of applicants for schools and buildings and parks and things that people wanted to name after the late president. And the Kennedy family kind of took reservation, if you will, to approve each of these and disapprove others. Their major concern was that the community in which the building, or in this case, the memorial, was going to be constructed, that the community would put a program together to provide maintenance for it. So going forward, it wouldn't go into disrepair. They were given the assurances. City fathers at the time were also in agreement on this. The senator was informed that the committee planned to transfer the land to the city of Holyoke for its perpetual care, and that the committee would oversee that the city would properly care for the memorial. And as agreed upon at that time, the deed was accepted to the land and the commitment to care for the park was executed. The parade committee, I will say under the watchful eye of the parade committee, Morris wrote, the Kennedy family agreed with that. They approved it. Senator Kennedy was agreed to speak at the dedication, but I'm told by others that he was unable to come because of a prior commitment. But at any rate, it was dedicated in, I believe it was 1967. The city of Holyoke has kept its commitment to maintain the park, and it's a landmark for the city. And it's included in the brochures pointing out attractions in the city of Holyoke. If you Google John F. Kennedy memorials, you'll see this, and we're very pleased that that's in that situation. This memorial is a focal point each year during what we refer to as the green season, leading up to the parade. In late February, the Paper City American Legion Post 325, just up the street on Sycamore Street, and the parade committee raised the Irish flag in anticipation of the March events that are to come. The parade weekend in Holyoke, our national award recipient lays a memorial wreath at the monument on the day before the parade. Last year, a number of members of our committee noticed that the condition of the monument was falling into some disrepair. And one of the reasons that we're concerned is because there's liability issues there. It's owned by the city, and you've got some of our pictures. I think you all have them broken steps, cracked granite slabs. Grout throughout the monument, I think probably needs to be completely replaced. Certainly needs to be clean. And there need to be, the shrubbery that was out in front needs to be replaced with the appropriate shrubs that will match the ones that were there originally and very, very closely. As I say, in your packet, and we're going to show you a little video here at the end that will show some of the damages there. As far as the public benefit of doing this, it will fulfill the city's longstanding commitment to maintain the monument in a fitting and appropriate manner and demonstrate the city's commitment to maintenance. Kip, you said that we were last but not least, and we're last and we are least in terms of what we're asking for. We're not asking for very much, but we went out and contacted 2 vendors last, probably late summer, early fall. One is JSC Construction LLC, who is Scott Curran of the Curran's Warehouse family, formerly Curran Construction. And in terms of familiarity with working on projects such as this, all you have to do is take a walk through the warehouse and you can see how familiar and how well that they maintain things of an historic nature. Scott provided us with the quote of approximately $6,000 to $5,500 for the granite work and another $500 for the shrubbery. Our second vendor is CMS Landscaping for the shrub and planting replacements. They are willing to do the labor for nothing, but the plants that they'll have to be reimbursed for, and the estimate was for $500 for that. CMS has been doing business in Holyoke since 1976, and their wide experience in landscaping will benefit this project. It's a fairly simple landscaping part of this. Full disclosure, Bob Cameron of CMS is my brother-in-law and Stephanie's uncle, and members of the parade committee went to him before Steph and I were even involved with this. So it's not a big job for him. Funding, as I said, we're asking for $6,000. That quote was provided to us last, I guess, August. We're a little concerned now about that money. If we have any more severe damage to the monument over the course of this winter, we've been lucky so far, but it's going to be awful cold here the next couple of days, and that's not good for it. But if there's any additional damage, I'd be a little concerned that $6,000 might not be enough to do the complete job. A smaller award would certainly be insufficient for this project. It's pretty small as it is.
Hello.
Asking you if there's any possibility in adding $2,000 or $3,000 from the money that you have put aside in reserve and unassigned at this point. We're hoping that $6,000 would be enough, and if all things stay equal, I think it probably would. But the city is not going to budget for this, or I won't say is not, but the city has historically not budgeted for this type of thing in their normal DPW budget. And using CPA dollars seems to be certainly an appropriate way to fix this problem, and also an appropriate use of that money. And lastly, on our presentation, before we show you the video, as city-owned property, recording an historic restriction may be appropriate. You folks would certainly know more about that than we do, but perhaps for a set time period. But it's a straightforward project. I mean, if you drive by it, you can see that it's just starting to get old. There's some cracked granite slabs and there's some steps that are issues. Cleaning. There are people that use, in fact, Stephanie and I were there taking some of those pictures that you see. There was a gentleman who was exercising behind, on the monument itself, not on the statue, but on the slabs, laying down, doing sit-ups, stretching, and in the middle of us kind of wondering what was going on, he jumped up and ran away. So, but he was exercising. So and the damage is partly caused, I think, over time by skateboarders. that is a problem at any type of plaza you have without some type of enforcement. But so without further ado, I'd like.
Mark,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I didn't hear you. How much addition, you said we have $6,000 now. There may be future damage as a result of inclement weather coming up. Did you say that you needed an additional $2,000, Mark? I didn't quite hear you.
Yeah, two or 3,000, Mike, unless there's something catastrophic that happens over these next couple of months.
Right. So if you were to say you prefer to use as a budget figure $9,000, but actually it came in at $7,200, obviously you'd only draw down $7,200.
Absolutely.
Right, but if you budgeted for $9,000, you're fairly comfortable with using that figure, $9,000.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to show some pictures. You can talk.
You can see that the grout is pretty much non-existent in most areas. And the proposal would be to replace the grout with the grout that's colored very similar, if not the same, to the color of the granite slabs. This is a particularly egregious break of a slab. You can see there's marks all over. There's weeds growing up in the middle there. That's one of the things that's a liability issue for the city. And you can see almost everywhere. You can see the grout that's missing there. Probably a little bit of leveling. You see that those black marks along there. I don't know if that's probably from the skateboards. Not sure how you police that, but
the flag raising.
Yeah, this is the flag raising that we do towards the end of February in concert with the American Legion post up the street. They've been real supportive, and I think they gave us that flag this past year. That's me and the Colleens this a year ago before we were canceled. Glad they're cutting my head off and showing the Colleens. That's a good thing for here.
Mark, if you were to, is your intent, if you were to get this approved by us and the city council, is your thinking to start this project like in May or June of this year?
Yes, I think the application that we put in said that we're hoping, because I'm looking at your fellows' timeline rather. So I think you said the earliest you give out the awards is June, maybe May or June. You appear to be ahead of schedule this year, which I was hopeful about, glad to see. Our goal would be to start this as soon as feasible after the grant is awarded, and we want to have it finished by next September.
And you think that to do this job would be a 30 days to do the job?
I don't know if it would be that quick, but what we want to have it done is before next winter, and I think September. Oh. We don't want to go through another winter and take a chance on more damage due to severe weather.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions, comments from committee members? Amy, let's go with committee members first. Mike, you have something else you want to?
Mr. Chairman, if you have no, this is out of order. I'll be the first to admit it, but if you have no objection and our committee members don't, this is not a big ticket item, and the active deterioration of this of the monument is occurring. If, with your permission, the permission of the committee members, I'd like to approve it this evening for $9,000 and get the ball rolling. It may take another month for the city council to do it, but at least Mark and his committee will have the certainty of knowing it. We voted on it, we've accepted it. These guys are good to go, and they can start it as soon as possible. it's not going to get healed by itself, certainly. So I request on this particular instance, it's not a lot of money, $9,000 at the most. And I'd like to propose, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, and our committee members, that and this particular reason, because of the importance of the statue, it's an active piece of history. And it's not a lot, it's not a big ticket item, that this evening, I'd like to make a motion, we approve this project. With your permission and commission of committee members.
So you've made a motion, which you're fully within your rights. You know, I guess, is there a second at this point to approve some funding, and I'm assuming we're talking about the modified $9,000 budget instead of $6,000. So
yeah,
so you know, before we start discussing it, let's see if we have a motion. Do we have a second to fund the JFK Memorial, or recommend funding of the JFK Memorial? I'm not hearing a second. And let me just say, I would second it, but I want to have a broader discussion about all the applications that we've seen so far tonight before seconding this one. So don't go anywhere. So Amy, so I didn't hear a second. Did anybody second Mike's motion yet? No, I didn't. So, but Mike, I don't think we're done talking about it tonight. I just want to have a broader discussion before we start doing that, okay?
Sure.
Amy, you have something? I saw your hand
Yeah,
up.
I do have some questions for Mark. So the work that would be done would just be on the slabs on the ground and not on the actual statue. Is that right?
Yeah, the actual statue is in very good shape. It does need to be cleaned like the rest of the place. There's leaching on it that has to be taken care of, and so it's mostly the slabs, the grout issues, the broken steps, and everything else. You know, well, that is everything. Everything is affected on there, but the statue of President Kennedy from the neck up is in good shape. That was damaged several years ago. That I believe Curran Construction made the arrangements to have that fixed, and it's perfect as of the other day, unless something has happened since then. But so that's okay. Everything else needs to be touched up.
And the slabs and the steps were part of the original memorial?
Yes.
Okay. And also, I noticed you said Parks is a co-applicant, and this is owned by Parks, right? So it's a city-owned property, correct?
Yes, it's a city-owned property, yeah.
I'm wondering, in that case, it seems like this would have to go out to bid and would require prevailing wages, because that's what the city projects require.
Well, it's below the $10,000 threshold.
Oh, that's true. Okay, maybe it doesn't need to.
I don't know about prevailing wage. That's a different matter. But from a procurement, I think they got to make 3 phone calls or something. So, but we'll let the city deal with the procurement stuff. That's.
Yeah, I think that's right, because if this were to be prevailing wage, it would be far more than $6,000 or $8,000 or $9,000. We know that.
Mark, it may be. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert on prevailing wage in a project like this, but if it is, and assuming it gets approved, you can come back and ask for more money, and
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
If we think if there's some, I think it's within the authority of this committee to be able to, put the number up there. It's 9, 10. We're talking about a fire truck that's 130. So if you were to ask for 12, that might give you enough to take care of prevailing wage, and you're only gonna get out of the accounts what you spend. So if it costs 8, $4,000 comes back and goes to projects next year. It's not like we're talking about 40 or 400 that's going to be sitting there not being used. So, I'm not, in my opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee, but I think there's probably a way to maybe build that into this at this point. Anybody else have any, let's stay with JFK for a minute. Anybody have any comments or questions on the application for restoration of the JFK Memorial? No. Public, anybody in the public? We're all set? All right, thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So
Yeah.
we want to sit tight for just a second and see how this goes. And I don't know, I don't have a good read.
We're here till 9.
No, we're not. No, we are not.
Hopefully none of us will.
You'll be there by yourself. So, Mike Falsetti kind of opened up a very interesting topic. I would suggest that earlier tonight from Andrew McMahon, we heard that we have, $689,000 worth of available funding for projects. I'll point out that, I think we heard 4 good project. We have 4 good applications in front of us. The total dollar amount I have at 236. That's before bumping the JFK at all, which we have the ability to do. We also have some other applications that were submitted last year that weren't funded, that people have submitted applications to reapply for this funding cycle. But I believe that even if we were to approve all 4 of these projects tonight, we still have enough money for those other projects, and we have the emergency housing money that we're likely going to have to deal with at some point. So a long-winded way of saying, like, what's the committee's will? I mean, is anybody here interested in talking about giving consideration to the applications, 1 or all 4 of them tonight? Mike Falsetti?
Mr. Chairman, my fellow committee members, all these 4 projects are great projects. They're not really that big ticket items, all 4 of them. They all meet the qualifications. They're all unique, iconic, Holyoke only specific projects that will benefit the community. And I think all 4, quite frankly, should be, well, whatever is the will of the committee. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd vote for all 4 of them because they all have to do with the upkeep of the city, the benefit of the city, whether it's the fire truck that can be used for many years at St. Patrick's Day or any other event, or the park, or the memorial building, certainly the JFK memorial. All of them are very worthy projects. They all meet the criteria of a community preservation, certainly. And Mr. Chairman, as far as I would vote for all 4 of them this evening. I mean, they're just great projects.
How about a motion?
I agree with you, Mr. Falsetti. I would love to, because we have a number of projects that are returning. I would love to have us just kind of a reading into the record of, here are the other 3 projects that presented last year that are now returning to be reconsidered, just before we vote.
Well, Mr. Chairman, do you have a dollar amount of what these 3 other projects are? I don't remember them off the top of my head.
I'd just like to finish the process of presentations before we get into voting.
Okay, well, that's, so Mike.
What are they?
I mean, does anybody want to make a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion, right? To wait until we hear all the projects all out, to then make a decision on what we want. I agree with you, Mr. Falsetti, with regards to the JFK project. I would totally fund it. I just kind of want to hear them all out, because I want to be fair to everybody at the same time. And if I only hear, because all 4 of the projects sound awesome, but I haven't heard all the other projects. And I know some of them are from the past, like the Mayor Field project. I believe there's some housing projects, I believe too. They're from last year. But if we could at least let them refresh our memory or re-jog our memory on it, maybe, because 680,000 is gonna go fast. It might be enough, it might not be enough. I just kind of want to be able to hear them all.
No, that's okay. No, it's a good idea. It's a good way of looking at things. The point of all this is these stand unique in the historical category. They're not in housing. They're not in recreation, if you will. They're not in open space. They're uniquely historic. So if there are any more historic projects before us, let's hear it. But for the category these are in, historic preservation, if there are no more historic preservation projects, then why not vote for them? If there's any more, housing and all that, that's another category. But for the category of historic preservation, we have 4 in this category. We have 4 good ones.
I think you technically have 3 because Pulaski Park is open space and rec, so that would be in the same category as Mayor Field. No? Or did we do it in both categories, Amy?
It's both. I mean,
we determined it's historic, Meg.
Actually, if I can suggest a middle ground here, I think, I join everybody else who's spoken in their enthusiasm for the projects we've heard tonight. As I recall, we voted last time not to rehear any presentations from the previous applicants because we have some familiarity with them. So we don't need to wait for them to come in and represent. But if we wanted to just quickly refresh our memories about what those projects are, maybe we could move along and consider everything at once and satisfy everybody's interests here.
Yeah, maybe are they in the historic category?
Mike, whatever, if we're funding these projects are going to be well in excess of what the minimum.
I understand that.
So it's tapping into that, like, the reserve or the general account, which could go to any project. So we could be taking out of funding away from the others. So, but what I'm hearing is, the will of the committee is to at least discuss tonight what other applications are in front of us. And so, Amy, do you have, I could off the top of my head, but if you were, I think it would be appropriate for you to.
I don't have all the details in front of me, but I can tell you, what they are and what they're asking for. There's the Mayor Field improvements, which Izzy mentions, that's for 210,000. They're asking for, that's a resubmission. Well, I think it's slightly altered, but pretty similar. I have to go through, I don't have all the details in front of me for that. So that's under the recreational space. And then we have a resubmission from MIFA Victory Theater for 100,000, also in the historic category. And then in the housing, as we mentioned, the for the housing, the $199,101 request which is a resubmission from One Holyoke CDC for the 2 family homes, the first-time homeowners. And then, of course, the emergency application we got some time ago from VOC, Valley Opportunity Council, Housing Assistance Program, COVID Relief for 250,000. So just so you know, in that housing category alone, the total request was almost 700,000. And of course, it's already been approved for the Wayfinders.
Amy, how much is Steve Huntley's emergency housing assistance application for?
250,000.
So this, sorry, but
so to do the quick math, right? We had $689,000 of funding available. If we were to say add $4,000 to the JFK and bring that to 10, we have $240,000 worth of applications in front of us. So if you take 689,
I have a quick question.
can I just finish that, please?
Skip, isn't the fire truck just half of that?
Well, what? So
Okay, go ahead.
my concern about them doing half the fire truck is, what if there's not money for the second half?
Okay, okay, so no,
That's
I
right.
just want
Perfect.
clarification. Thank you.
So 689 minus 240 is 449. Call it, and we're talking about 300, 550. So we're $100,000 short if we were to fund every application in front of us, and including the resubmissions. So,
Mr. Chair, for what it's worth, that completely answered all of my issues with balancing this stuff off. I think that everything in front of us today is worth funding. There is nothing that I would prefer to hold any of the money, from previous submissions for. And at this point, I would happily move forward and say, yes, as we balance these all and we look at the various categories that we've spent money on, we've spent a lot on housing, we've spent a lot on recreational fields, and we, as Mr. Falsetti has pointed out, we haven't spent that much on historic preservation, and all of these are great preservation projects.
so does someone want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion, we fund all four.
And we fund all four, just for clarification, at $10,000 for JFK.
Yeah,
Just- I mean,
But
sure,
we said 9 because we don't want it to trip over the line.
make
well-
it 9,000,
Yeah,
okay,
9,000.
do math at 10. That's why I said the 10, but 9 is fine, and I think Mark, 9 ought to get you there, right?
Yeah, I think it would, not to be coy, but maybe 9,999.
Well, let me
We
just
stay under the threshold.
started with 6.
I think that's the threshold. I don't know if it's 10 and under or under
10
10.
and under.
well, no, but
It is 10 and under.
let me just point out that it isn't, what's not going to trigger the procurement law is not how much we give you, it's how much the project costs. So we could give you 10, and as long as you stay under 10, then you're going to have to do
That's
public.
right.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
That's why I said 10, just, so 10 there and full funding of the other 3 applications. We have a motion.
Yes, I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mike Falsetti's motion. Do we have a second on that motion?
Sure, second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend funding all of these to the city council.
Yes.
Any discussion on them? Anybody want to comments, discussion?
So, Rip, if we fund all the projects that came forward today, what would be the total price what would be our balance left?
Give me 1 minute. I'm doing it now.
450, is it?
450,000.
450.
And the 450, we would look towards the other projects that are left over.
Right.
Yes.
That works for me. Right, baby?
He likes it.
Izzy, that was an affirmative. She said,
Yeah.
Anybody else open for discussion? Marco?
Yeah, excuse me. I have a little heartburn over maybe understanding if we're putting, a certain amount of money towards a project. I like it when it's a study because actual issues are evaluated and solutions vetted, and that your money is going towards the right solution. I still have a little bit of, I was hoping to be able to talk about it. Maybe I'm not understanding it, and you guys can certainly tell me, but if the DPW is going to go look at Prospect Park or Pulaski Park and they're just going to patch the top, don't we want to, that's for the study. So I feel good about that, because if he says that the walls are leaning over, well, a little bit of surface treatment is not going to fix that. That project's probably worth at least 6 figures, and we're not giving them that money to do that project. So
no.
Sometimes I think, in the fire truck restoration, I think is different. I think there was, but the others, I'm just a little worried, like the war memorial, the building there with the soot on the top. If it truly is just soot and they're going to clean it off and it's going to look beautiful for another, 50 years or more, then great. But if we're going to spend money and do a project and not, I don't know if we truly understand the source of the issue. Like I was looking at those broken steps at the Kennedy Memorial. I like the Kennedy Memorial. I drive by it frequently. I always look at it. I haven't been there. I'll go there this weekend. But like, if the stones are breaking, is it the skateboarders or is there work underneath, like foundation work? Like that's more than $10,000. That's 5 figures. So I just want to be careful that we're spending the taxpayers' money, applying that money to true solutions that address the correct sources of the issue. That's all, not cosmetic stuff. So I'm happy to do the cosmetic stuff. We can say that it'll spiff it up or it'll fix it up for at least temporarily, but I just want to feel better about understanding that our money spent is addressing the source of the issue and not just, the part that we see. That's all.
No, good
Thanks.
points.
Good points.
And
Anybody else?
point, I'm not sure how to proceed. I will say on my own behalf that I had just assumed from Marco's comments earlier that he was satisfied as to the propriety of doing that work on the war memorial, as opposed to needing more study to understand the issues there. If
So if
that's
you're
not
cleaning,
the maybe it's worthwhile going forward with them anyway. Maybe we want to reopen this and see whether we should get more of a study to find out whether that's the correct issue.
Mike,
do we want to reopen it?
I'm
Or do you think
Mr. Chairman, it's the war memorial is to clean the surface, make the building look nice. If you're going to study if there is a problem with water or moisture inside the building, you're going to be spending 6 figures for an engineering firm to go in there and do a study. Now, if you're prepared to spend that kind of money, which it's a little much for our little committee, that's fine. But for $40,000 to clean the building up and keep it looking nice is one issue. The other issue of the structural integrity of the building is quite another. And we don't have the money for that from this committee. We don't have it. So at least it's something. And maybe just be surface. Maybe the environment in surface. That doesn't mean there's a structural deficiency, but if there is, you're going to have to pay somebody like Ty and Bond a lot of money to study the whole roof structure. And we don't have that kind of money. It's what we can afford.
Yeah, no, I'm content to clean it. I just didn't want to get us into a position where we might inadvertently be making things worse because we hadn't stopped to think about it.
No, it's surface deterioration.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second and we're deliberating. Anybody else have any comments or questions on the motion to fund all 4 projects? I'm not hearing any, so let's take a vote. All in favor of funding the 4 projects that we've discussed tonight?
Aye.
And at $10,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3.
Marco, is that a no?
1, 2, 3, 4. Mr. Chairman, you're 5?
Up or down? Okay.
I can't.
What was that final vote?
6-1.
Amy, can you hear that?
Yeah. So it's 6-1. And this was for 10,000 for the JFK Memorial?
Yep. So
Yeah.
that would bring us to
We can't hear Kip. Amy, we can't hear Kip. Can
Well,
anybody
he's
hear
on,
Kip?
I have no control over that. I think his screen might have froze. He's unmuted.
Hear me?
He wrote,
Oh,
sorry.
he says, sorry, tech difficulties.
There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yay, yes.
Okay, I don't know what was happening. I got an error message or something, but you can hear? No, I'm not. You can't hear me now, can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, Mike Falsetti's frozen though.
No, he's not.
Oh, it must be your internet's probably unstable, Kip. Your bandwidth.
Yeah,
That's
something
what
might be.
happened to Mike Sullivan last time.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what was happening. Something, this isn't perfect technology.
So I just have a quick question. So Meg, I see your chat and it says 6-1. And then is that the remaining amount of money we have is the 444?
Yep, so that means it would be reduced.
That's our balance.
$444,017.19.
That we have left to spend. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the vote was 6-1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it 6-1? Okay. 6-1. Great. So pass. So everybody got funded.
Beautiful.
So I'm nervous because I'm not sure you're hearing me. It's a little hard to.
No, you're good now.
Yeah. And if you're concerned, you might want to turn your video off. Sometimes that helps give you more bandwidth.
Okay, thank you. If I'm having a problem again, I'll do that. This is the first time that's happened to me. So, okay, so let's move on then to next agenda items. Amy, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to propose that the committee at that maybe the next meeting determine what terms and conditions you want these applicants to to be put into the contract, because it's been kind of difficult at times for me to sort of draft all these documents to give to Councilor Sullivan without really knowing what the will of the committee is for the different projects.
Yeah, I'm not sure what so I don't think we can deal with that right now, right? I mean, I think.
Right, I meant for maybe the next meeting. Just I don't know. I feel if I were to just create documents quickly to rush this through, I wouldn't really know what to put in certain categories.
Yeah,
for deadlines.
Discuss that next time.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that should be top priority.
Yeah, so I think we emailed a little bit about putting together a table for each contract and what terms the committee needs to address, and we'll bang through those at the next meeting that we have.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we're all set with that agenda item then. I mean, let's move on to the next. We have some agreements that Amy forwarded to us. We have Lady Liberty Armor and Company and the merry-go-round. How do we want to deal with those agreements? We want to go through them one at a time, and let me first ask, right? Have the members of the committee had a chance to review those agreements, and are you in a position where you're comfortable with reviewing and discussing your level of comfort with those documents?
I have been able to look at 2 of the 3. I haven't reviewed the armor one.
Okay. How about other people?
No, I've seen them all, Mr. Chairman. They're fine.
So I will just put out there that I took a gander through a few of those documents, but I think particularly just not feeling like I have the background. I sort of wish we would get to a point where we had a subcommittee that really vetted these and then brought their recommendations to this body versus this body really be in charge of the line to line. Because if someone brought up if I scanned through, I don't think I would catch the problems if they did exist. And if someone said here's this problem, let's vote this way, I would have to just defer to their expertise because I don't feel like I have it.
Okay, so for what it's worth, then I don't know that this really addresses your point, but I do think we need to think through these a little. What I noticed was with the 2 that I was able to review, there is a continuing date problem and deadline problem, and it's easily corrected. But we've got the same thing in two of these contracts, basically, that got us into trouble with our previous extensions. We have a provision that says, for instance, with the Lady Liberty project, that the work has to be done within 6 months of the execution of the contract, which is fine. You know, I don't have a problem with that. It also says that we can extend it, which also is fine. I don't have a problem with granting an extension for good cause shown. Then we have a termination clause that says if this work isn't done within those 6 months, the contract automatically terminates. And obviously we want these provisions to all work together and say the same thing. If we want to be able to extend it, I think we want to just, you know, amend the terms so that in the relevant extension portion, it says, you know, 6 months, which may be extended by the committee for good cause shown up to whatever end period we want to put. And I think there was some discussion earlier in the committee about wanting to have all of our projects, you know, have some ultimate termination point. And then, you know, we want to get down to that final termination clause and have it say, you know, within 6 months or such period as, you know, the committee may have voted to extend it to, just so that we don't get back into a position where we're ever in dispute with an applicant about whether we can extend and what the date is and whether a contract is about to terminate out from under them. And, you know, those are little technical things. I don't think they should be controversial or hard to do. But, you know, I do think it's important that we do it. And I was really grateful when I found them that Mike had set up this system where we were going to review contracts before we signed them. So, you know, thank you. I think it's important that we did it. And
Well,
I don't know whether anybody else caught anything, but that was my big takeaway.
So I think this comes back to how do we approach this, right? And I think Meg has suggested that maybe there's a subcommittee that reviews these agreements and reports back to the full committee. And I think the other option is that, you know, the full committee at a meeting like this goes through the documents and, you know, line by line almost. And that's going to be a long meeting and a lot of work.
Be a long meeting, yeah.
So, so as a committee, what's the will of the committee? So right now, right, and this becomes part of the problem. And I think what Amy is suggesting is that if we were to upfront do this work, lay out what the terms are important to the committee that she can take, you know, incorporate into a memo to Mike Sullivan, which ultimately ends up at the law department. And those are the terms that go into the agreement. And then all we're doing is, you know, cross-referencing our memo to the agreement to make sure that, you know, that it meets what the terms were. So going forward, I think that's a great idea. But the problem is we have now this backlog of agreements that are now in front of us that the committee decided wanted to review these agreements before they're fully executed. So, you know, there's that issue is prominent and probably is precedent over even the development of the next set of agreements or even the recommendation terms that go to the city council. I think we might have to slow that down a little bit, Amy. Like we, as a committee, we've acted really quickly. So it's still January. We've voted to recommend funding to the city council a bunch of projects. Doesn't mean we need to rush this off to the city council now. I think we can take our time, maybe at our next meeting, work through the terms, and then the memo goes. But, you know, we also have 3 agreements that we need to review that and many of them already have other signatures on them, you know. So we have to deal with this too. And I don't know about you, but you guys or the rest of you, but the idea of going line by line through 3 documents right now is not a very appealing thought to me. So Mike Falsetti, you got a good idea?
Well, I don't know how good it is. It's really to reflect, I think, what Mimi was talking about. Those 3 documents, the 3 contracts that we're talking about, they're pretty much the same in the requirements in the defense of the city. You know, you can't sue the city. Think we're going to hold you responsible if you don't spend the money, if you don't record the money, if you don't give us the reports. They were all kind of the same. As I think you're right, Kip. There may be we could add a paragraph that we specifically wanted addressed into it, but the city solicitor has already written that up. She's done her job, and they all look pretty much the same. I mean, dollar amounts of different people, but it's basically do your job, keep up your agreement, give us the reports. You don't get the money until the job's done. You have a certain amount of time to do it, and if you don't do it right, we're taking the money back. I think those were all, but those were in all 3 documents. I think you're being too hard on yourself to think that we've got. Well, I don't have the knowledge or the training to go line by line to think it's going to be Supreme Court proof. But all 3 of them, Kip, they're kind of the same thing. We have timelines, as Mimi brought up, that we had a problem with, but they weren't structural problems within the contract that we could be sued, or the city could be sued, or you could be sued, or I could be sued. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was, I mean, there were legitimate concerns. I think if we just read them, and the city solicitor has already proposed them.
Well, I think you're right, Mike. There's a ton of boilerplate language in there that we have no expertise to touch, but there are kind of key terms, including deadlines and extensions and willingness to grant extensions. That I think is what was the motivation for the committee voting to want to approve contracts before they're executed. So this is really kind of the first time that we're doing this since that decision was made. And I'm just trying to, how do we navigate that? Like, how do we get that done? And
I think, but your basic insight about how to do this, I think, is right. You know, if we have good term sheets, then we just, all we'll have to do going forward is match the contract against the term sheets to see that the terms are the same. And with these 3, this is just, I think, a technical oversight. And all we need to do, at least, you know, to my deadline issue, is say, okay, what were the deadlines we meant? And it will be a very simple job for Jenna in the law department and for anyone who we delegate to make those line corrections. It's like 3 places in the contract. It'll be the same thing in all 3. And it's just a matter of what are the dates? How many extensions do we want to be able to grant? And does the termination clause actually say the same thing as the extension clauses? Because we don't want to run into an internal contradiction within the contract.
so how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? I mean, not theoretically, but like right now, like you know, these documents.
Okay, right now, I would suggest that we look at these 3 contracts, none of which I took lead on, so I don't have strong feelings. And one of them says, you know, 8 months from the signing of the contract. One of them says 6 months from the signing of the contract. So that will be the benchmark date. And I'm not looking at the contract now, so I don't know which paragraphs particularly, but I think it may have been like 5 that has the original 6 months in it, and an earlier one that has, and the city or the committee can vote to extend this for good cause shown. And at that point, we probably want to say how many times we can extend it and what the final drop dead date is if we want to have one. And then down at around paragraph 15, which is the termination clause, all we need is a few more words say, reflecting those dates and having it terminate, 6 months from the signing of the contract or at such extended date as the committee and applicant may agree to, consistent with, paragraph 5 or, whichever the extension clause was. But this is literally like a sentence here, another sentence there, a few words elsewhere, and we're done. And once it's done, it'll be the same language in every contract of this kind that we do, only with different dates, depending on what the dates are going to be. And
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So how do we do that? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, flip about it. It's like we have these 3 agreements that are here. How do we go through those right now? Do you want to? Does a subcommittee want to, make recommended changes and bring those back to this committee at a meeting yet to be scheduled and then bang it out there? I mean, do we do it tonight? Do we do it?
Okay. See, here's the thing, and this is, I think, why I am driving you nuts by hedging. I don't know why, or I don't know what the dates should be for these agreements, one of which I haven't looked at. And I know that the Lady Liberty has the 6 months in it as the initial term. And possibly Mike knows how long we should be able to extend it to before we start feeling like, enough is enough. If it hasn't been done, it's time for this to terminate. We need to make a similar decision about the merry-go-round horses. Once we do that, I think that, if the committee wanted to delegate me or a committee of me and somebody else to talk to Jenna about getting the wording down, the wording is going to be very simple and we'll be able to use it as boilerplate over and over and over.
Okay. So do we want to, so I'm going to ask the question again. Do we want to look at that language in those contracts, specific language in specific contracts right now, and come to an agreement on what that language should be, and somehow communicate that language to Jenna? Like, we have the lady. I mean, do people? I have them on my screen. I don't know if other people have them, and I don't know whether you want to deal with it. Now, I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no, the wording, I think.
Let's go through contract language. I'm just trying to figure out how we get from here to there.
I think we need a vote basically on what we think those termination dates should be. After that, unless people are really anxious about it, the precise language is going to be very simple to draft, and I don't think we need to sit here and do it.
So do we want to do that? Do we want to take that first step? Do we want to pull up the Lady Liberty contract, look at what the terms are and the ability to extend, and agree that that's the appropriate language, or to suggest different dates?
Well, I think it depends on how quickly we want to move on these, but if we want to get them out, I would think the fastest way to do it is to look at the dates, pick some dates. Once we know what the dates are, writing the contract so that it works and all of the terms are consistent with one another is a no-brainer. It's really simple to do.
Okay, so again, I'm
okay,
sorry.
I am not suggesting that we draft final language while we sit here, because I think that's a waste of everyone's time. I am suggesting that we pick dates and we say to some group of people, okay, take this back to the law department and let's get this done. And at that point, we should have agreed about language and be able to just authorize you to sign them and get them out of here. And I see Mike laughing at me.
I'm laughing at our new guest.
Aha, okay.
So,
our new guest is adorable.
You can see the door behind me. She sneaks in. She now knows how to open doorknobs.
a dangerous phase.
Progress.
Now they know how to get out too. You got to keep an eye.
There you go.
I don't want to see, been enough missing dogs lately. I don't want to be hearing about missing kids.
Oh, God, don't say that. But Kip,
Oh,
I mean,
Look,
Kip,
I'm sorry. Do we want to look? I mean, we can pull up the Lady Liberty Agreement, look at the dates, and agree on that's nothing other than, we're just basically saying the term. This is what the terms are and a termination clause and potential for extensions. I don't think it'll take long to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
no
right.
problem. If you want to do Lady Liberty, I've got it right here.
Let's
Um,
let's
Okay.
try. Let's start
Let's
with
try with one.
Lady Liberty and see how we do.
Okay.
All right. So, contract documents, scope of work, term, number 5. Effective upon execution, all the work described in this grant must be completed within 6 months. Recipient may request an extension to the deadline. Funds returned that aren't used.
What's
Anybody?
the deadline?
Okay, so how long do we want to be able to extend it to?
May request an extension. 6 more months?
Sure,
Okay,
no problem.
that's
right.
all I think we need. And from my point of view.
Sure,
Yes.
yeah.
Display, compliance with law, termination. Automatically
Yeah,
in this agreement are not. Some funky language there. Under 14. In the event that any terms, conditions, or restrictions in this agreement are not within 6 months of the execution of this grant will automatically terminate. So that's where the conflict is, unless extended,
Yeah.
right?
right.
Okay. All right. So we just need to make those 2 changes, or that one
And I
change.
think there's one change somewhere in the middle, which I will pull up and find, but it's the same sort of thing. It's a very minor change.
All right. We don't need to vote on that, right? Anybody want to vote on that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So Mimi, will you make that, or maybe communicate with Amy what we're suggesting, or do you think you should go right to the law department with it?
Well, I think that I can hit everybody at once. I can make proposed changes. I can send them to you, Amy, and the law department.
Okay, great.
And I am happy to do that.
Thank you.
So that was fast. We spent more time talking about how we were going to do it than we actually did.
Right. I
Exactly.
agree.
Exactly.
So let's jump to the merry-go-round.
Okay.
And
Yeah, and as I recall, this is exactly the same, only it's 6 months.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I mean, and it's 8 months instead of 6 months. So
Contract term, okay. So it's 8 months unless
extended.
you request an extension for how much longer? 6 more months?
6 months.
Everybody good with 6 months?
Yeah,
And then we just have to clean up the language again in
Yeah.
termination, unless extended.
Okay, now this one also, as I recall, we had a discussion about whether they had to have a specific kind of specialist. And we decided that they didn't, because they were already hiring that kind of specialist to evaluate the horses. And probably at some point we should just look at that boilerplate to make sure that it says what we want it to say.
Well, we should do that now because they're looking to be able to get these things executed, right? So restrictions, number
Yeah. All
8,
work must be done.
in compliance with the exchange for the grant agrees by 25 preservation restriction.
You know, I think it's a question, as I recall, about whether we want to specify that the consultant who is an expert in restoring the horses is also the consultant, qualified to certify that they're being done in compliance
With what?
with the historical standards. And I don't recall why the discussion came up many months ago now about whether they had to get two experts. But I know that we felt strongly that they only needed the one expert because the restorer was a specialist in this area.
Mimi, they've already done the horses. I mean, we're not talking about different horses here. We're not talking about cows or sheep. We're still talking about horses. I mean, what do you want?
Well,
I think we're just trying to make it be in alignment with what we all sort of verbally agreed with several months ago, but it didn't end up in the contract. So, because in the contract, it stipulates having a separate historic consultant.
No, we didn't,
right?
Meg, we didn't want it because why let those guys pay for it? Where are they gonna?
Well, I know we didn't want it. I'm not saying we did.
But so does the language under 8 restrictions? I mean, I think 8A, all work must be done in compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation. That's pretty broad, right? I mean, recipient agrees to be bound by a 25-year restriction. I think, I don't know how you guys feel. I think that language covers what we were looking for. Anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, no, as long as everyone is comfortable that this is not going to require them to have an extra consultant, I am good with it. I just wanted to remind people of the issue and make sure nobody thought that we were asking them for a separate historical consultant.
So we know we're all on the same page of what those changes need to be too, Mimi, and you'll take care of it. So,
yes.
All right, can we move on to Armor and Company?
Well, they just have a draft.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm good. Looking at mine.
Term of this is all of the work must be completed within 13 months. They may request an extension. Well, how are we want to stay with that 6-month extension? An extension not to exceed 6 months?
Unless further specified for good cause. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, we got to be reasonable about this. If something comes up that's catastrophic that they didn't know about, I mean, we can't kind of blame them.
But that suggests that we may want to have more flexibility than the 6 months.
Yeah.
And, we can tailor these. They don't all have to be 6 months. We can say 2 6-month extensions instead of just 1.
Make it, for this particular application, make it a year.
Okay.
A 1 year, and then you got 1 more year or 6 months after that if you want, unless for due cause. I mean,
unless
the nature of that project is different than the horses. They may find the foundation's gone, or they may find something catastrophic that they didn't know about. That's reasonable in this type of application for that job. It's reasonable. You stumble upon things like Wisteria Hearst. You stumble upon things you didn't see. So let's make it, if it's all right with the board, you want to make it a 1 year extension? Is that good to everybody? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to make it a 1 year extension. And I agree. I think we need to give people a reasonable chance to do the work. And I also think that we need to have some sort of date by which it has to be done or the agreement goes away. It's just, I don't care, or I don't think it matters whether that's 3 years or 2 years or 1 year. But in each case, I think we want to decide what it is so that.
So what do people think? I mean, I've heard a year. Everybody good with a year? So they've 13 months and they can ask for a 12-month extension and the CPC can grant it. Doesn't have to go to the city council, doesn't have to.
Sure.
Everybody good with
that?
Yeah, that's
I
reasonable.
think so too.
That's reasonable.
And the same thing, we just have to clean up termination language so that it reflects that an extension can be granted.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
That was 1 year, right?
1 year.
Okay.
And the rest, I mean, the rest of it's boilerplate, right? I mean, the rest of it's nothing. There's a restriction in here, right? That Amy, again, it must be done in compliance with Secretary of Interior.
Right.
Right.
Grant agrees to cover the costs. So that's good too, right?
Mhm.
Same. So, look, we got all three of them done. I never thought that was going to happen.
That was easy.
Mhm.
Be happy. It was easy.
Because everybody's getting tired. That's why.
Well,
Really?
I think we did a good job.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
So the one thing that we haven't tackled, and I don't suggest we try to tackle it tonight, is the conditions for the awards. Let's put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Also on the agenda for our next meeting, is a discussion about the remaining applications that we have in front of us.
Do we want to invite people in to present on some of the other applications that we have in front of us?
That's a good question. What do people want to do? I mean, they have already, most of them,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
These
Yeah,
are
most of them have, yes.
resubmissions, but if the committee feels like, or members of the committee feel like they would like to have more information or an opportunity to ask questions, we can just say, come in case we have questions too. We don't want a presentation.
Right, that's true.
Mr. Chairman, that's a good idea. We don't need a presentation, but if this comes up or that comes up, the guy is right there,
They're
the
there.
gal is right there, and say, well, it's this, this, and this. You got your answer. Yeah, I mean, they don't have to make a presentation, just be there.
Right. Does that make sense to people? Izzy, does that make sense to you? Does your daughter think it makes sense?
She's watching her little cartoons right now, but I think it makes sense.
Enough with the cartoon. She's got to come back here.
Hey, D, come on, come in now. No, I agree with just having them. They don't have to present, but if we have questions, for them to just be there and answer them whenever we're there, whatever questions we have.
All right.
I'm sure we're gonna have questions.
So now we need to discuss when that might be. When we would like to meet again and have, and discuss the terms of the awards that we've made for 2021, so Amy can provide Jenna with that information, which
Also so that we can get it to Mike Sullivan.
and to Mike Sullivan. When do we want to meet again, so we know when to invite these people? How are people feeling?
Your choice.
I'm sorry?
Your choice.
My
Throw out a date.
at this point, but,
So tonight is a Wednesday, so we always meet on Wednesdays, I think.
so 2 weeks, 4 weeks?
Mr. 17th, I'm just throwing this out as a date. February 17th is the third Wednesday. If Wednesdays work with everybody. I mean, I'm just as a date, it's February 17th. That's 2 weeks. I don't know.
That sounds good to me. That's kind of a nice compromise between 2 and 4 weeks. And that will be our February meeting. We won't have
It's 3 weeks, just so you know.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Okay, so that works for people. So let's schedule.
February 17th.
Amy, is that going to create a problem for, no, it shouldn't, right, with Jenna or with the city council, because we're so far ahead of schedule from where we typically are on these things. There isn't anybody that's like, so let's do that, the 17th.
Okay.
And you'll invite the remaining 2021 applicants and hopefully key
So
terms.
you want me to invite them, and you also plan to, I'll also create a table of the new awards, I guess, try to put something together that you can discuss. You want to accomplish both of those things in that meeting?
Yes, if possible.
Okay.
Anything else, anybody on that they want to add to tonight's meeting? I feel like we've got a lot of work done tonight.
Yeah.
We're good. We're good.
8:13, wow. All right, someone want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take care, everybody.